Hey everyone, I'm Belle Reid, and today I'm going to be taking a look at Moog's desktop semi-modular synthesizers. In particular, I'm going to talk about Mavis, the Mother-32, DFAM, Subharmonicon, Labyrinth, and Spectravox. Bob Moog played a really important role in the history of synthesizers, designing one of the very first modular synthesizers in the 1960s. Historic Moog synths are famous for their rich sound and gorgeous resonant filters. And thankfully, these are qualities that have very much been carried forward in Moog Music's modern synth designs as well. Moog has carried on the legacy of these early instruments in the form of several desktop semi-modular synths. These instruments are super popular, not only because they sound great, but because they're a really awesome entry point into the world of modular synthesis and sound design at large. Semi-modular synthesizers are a great option for folks who are just getting started because they'll often contain a good sampling of important synthesis tools and functions all behind one panel. This means that they're often more affordable than fully modular synthesizers, and they're often made in such a way that you don't need to patch anything in order to start making sound, which is really convenient if you're completely brand new to modular synthesis. All of that said, if you are brand new to this whole world, it can be tricky to figure out what makes each of the Moog semi-modular synths different from one another, and how to choose the best one for yourself. Each one is designed to serve a distinct musical purpose, from creating leads and bass lines to creative percussion, experimental harmony, and more. So in this video, I'm going to walk through each synth one at a time. We'll listen to how they sound and talk about their musical strengths. Let's dive in. Mavis is a small but versatile monosynth. It has a single oscillator with variable wave shape, allowing for a continuous blend between saw and pulse wave shapes, as well as the option for pulse width modulation. Mavis also includes a transistor ladder low-pass filter that allows you to get to all of those classic Moog filter sweeps and bass sounds. It has an ADSR envelope for creating articulation, a built-in keyboard for melodic control, an LFO for additional modulation, and a number of other modular synth tools, such as a wave shaper, a sample and hold, a mixer, and an attenuator. It's worth noting that Mavis is the only of the Moog semi-modulars that features a wave shaper and a sample and hold, which open up a lot of interesting potential for timbral control and modulation, respectively. While the built-in keyboard in Mavis is handy, if you're interested in creating more complex melodic lines and sequences, you'd most likely want to pair Mavis with either an external controller or a MIDI to CV converter, as it doesn't have any MIDI capability built in, unlike some of the other instruments that we'll discuss in this video. Mavis is the smallest and most affordable option in the Moog Semi-Modular lineup. Because of this, and because of the number of essential synthesis tools that it possesses, I think Mavis would be a great first synth option for someone who's getting started with modular synths. You'll get access to a lot of sonic flexibility and range in a relatively compact and affordable synth, making it an excellent learning tool. Of course, Mavis is more than just a learning tool. It's a great choice for anyone who wants to get deep into patching custom signal flows and exploring classic analog modular sound design. Mavis also makes a great extra voice for any of the other Moog Semi-Modular synths. In fact, it's designed so that it can be placed alongside any other Moog Semi-Modular synth in a standard 104 HP Eurorack case, with each device's patch bay directly next to one another for convenient cross-patching. Mother-32 was Moog's first desktop semi-modular synthesizer, and as such, it was designed to tackle the types of sounds that we most commonly associate with Moog instruments: classic synth leads, bass lines, and sequenced melodic material. Mother-32 has a single analog oscillator with switchable saw and pulse wave shapes, with the option for pulse width modulation via the internal envelope or LFO. Like Mavis, Mother-32 also has a transistor ladder filter. However, here we have options for either low pass or high pass filter. Unlike Mavis, Mother-32 does not have a wave folder or sample and hold. However, it does have a quite sophisticated built-in sequencer and a MIDI to CV converter, and these are two of its greatest strengths. This means that you can create intricate melodic patterns directly on Mother-32, or you could control Mother-32 from a MIDI controller or a DAW. So in some regards, it's a bit simpler to integrate into a typical music production or performance workflow. Mother-32 also has a built-in LFO, an attack, sustain, decay envelope, and a noise source. Like Mavis, Mother-32 includes a patch bay and extra utilities that can help you go beyond what its default signal path can do alone. There's a voltage controllable mixer, an external audio input, and much more. Meaning that, though it's definitely designed with classic synth sounds in mind, it can be patched in ways that will take it much further. If you're primarily interested in creating classic sounding bass lines and melodic sequences, this synth is a great option for you. The DFAM is a semi-modular percussion synthesizer, but to call it a drum machine might be a bit misleading. DFAM is all about using an integrated sequencer, here, to reshape its monophonic analog sound engine with every beat, creating sounds that rhythmically evolve and change shape as you play. Unlike Mavis or Mother-32, DFAM has two oscillators, meaning that it can quite instantly take you to different sonic directions than its siblings. The sound of two oscillators together means that you can get a lot of really rich, constant timbral movement, even without needing modulation. But additionally, you can use the oscillators to frequency modulate and hard sync one another, providing a wide variety of complex, deep, and sometimes edgy tones that you just can't quite get to on the Mother-32 or Mavis. DFAM features a switchable high-pass, low-pass resonant transistor ladder filter and offers dedicated simple decay-only envelopes for the oscillator frequency, filter cutoff, and VCA. Great for dialing in drum and percussive type pitch effects and articulations. DFAM's rhythmic core is its two-row sequencer, which is normally connected to control the oscillators and note velocity. In essence, this sequencer is used to determine how the sound behaves on a step-by-step basis. And by patching the sequencer outputs to other destinations in the patch bay, you can get to some quite creative, unique results. You also have the ability to trigger the synth and to advance the sequencer manually, allowing you to play sounds gesturally as well as in a strict rhythm. DFAM is great at creating a wide range of drum and percussive type sounds, from more classic kicks and snares to all kinds of peculiar electronic rhythms and noisy textures. It's also worth noting that the sound generators in DFAM are oscillators, just like in the other synths that we've been looking at. So there's no special drum oscillator at work here. This simply means that depending on how you have things configured and patched on DFAM, you can get to a really wide range of sounds, textures, and rhythms. Like Mavis, DFAM doesn't offer MIDI input, but it could easily be connected to any external clock source, CV controller, or MIDI to CV converter. Even just the built-in sequencer here alone, though, will give you plenty to explore. The Subharmonicon also has two oscillators, but unlike the DFAM, which is focused more on percussive and drum type sounds that fall on a regular metronomic grid, Subharmonicon excels at creating lush, layered synth pads and harmonies and rhythmic relationships that are more complex and generative in nature. So you might be wondering, if Subharmonicon only has two oscillators, can it really make interesting harmonies? The answer is yes, because Subharmonicon has some interesting tricks up its sleeves. Each of the two oscillators on the Subharmonicon feature two sub-oscillators, which can be tuned to specific subharmonics of the main oscillator's frequency using the sub-frequency controls. So for example, you could tune them an octave below, an octave and a fifth below the main oscillator, and so on. This allows you to create some really lovely chords and layered tones. And since Subharmonicon has two independent oscillators with two subharmonic generators each, it can create up to 6-note harmonies. Similar to Mavis, the Subharmonicon has a great sounding transistor ladder low-pass filter option, but it does not have a high-pass filter option built in. Subharmonicon isn't just about experimenting with harmony, though. It's also about creating experimental generative rhythms. The Subharmonicon has two 4-stage sequencers and a polyrhythm generator that you can use to create different rhythmic divisions of the main clock's tempo. And you can even use multiple clock divisions to control the same sequencer, or both sequencers at once. The sequencers can be applied directly to the oscillator's pitches or to the subharmonics of each oscillator, so you can use these sequencers to make your harmonies shift and evolve over time. It's worth noting that Subharmonicon also features a number of built-in quantizer options, making it easy to keep your sequences in tune. It's also worth noting that Subharmonicon has a MIDI input and a very extensive MIDI implementation. You can synchronize it to external MIDI clock, you can send it note data, and you can control many of its parameters via MIDI CC. So if you have a setup that relies on a computer or external controllers, Subharmonicon should fit right in. So out of all of the synths that we have looked at so far, Subharmonicon is probably the furthest departure from a standard subtractive synthesizer. Despite its experimental approach, though, it's actually quite capable of very beautiful, dense textures. It's a great option for folks who are interested in layered pads and intricate rhythmic patterns. Moog describes Labyrinth as a parallel generative analog synthesizer. Similar to DFAM and Subharmonicon, Labyrinth excels at creating complex patterns, sequences, and grooves. However, Labyrinth has a few features that set it apart from Moog's other semi-modular synths, both in terms of sound and workflow. Labyrinth has two oscillators and a built-in noise source. Unlike the other instruments that we've looked at so far, which feature bright, buzzy waveforms like saw waves and square waves, which then get shaped and colored using low and high pass filters, Labyrinth's principal oscillator is a sine wave, and the second oscillator is a triangle wave. Timbral complexity is introduced into Labyrinth via a wave folder, as well as by using audio rate FM and ring modulation, allowing you to access a very wide range of sounds, from pure bell tones to noisy percussion to subtle vibrato and beyond. There's a filter on Labyrinth, but instead of Moog's classic low-pass ladder filter, on Labyrinth we have a state variable 12 decibel per octave filter with the ability to continuously blend between low-pass and bandpass modes. The instrument offers two simple decay-only envelopes for the oscillator frequency, filter cutoff frequency, wave folder amount, and VCA. Similar to Subharmonicon, Labyrinth features two built-in sequencers. However, the sequencers in Labyrinth are pretty unique. Instead of programming values at each sequencer stage, Labyrinth uses a combination of randomness and probabilistic behavior to generate unpredictable and evolving sequences on its own. The sequencers can be applied to the oscillator's pitch, wavefolder, or filter, so they can be used to create melodies or to modulate the timbre and texture of a sound. Similar to Subharmonicon, Labyrinth has a number of built-in quantization features to help you keep your melodic sequences in tune. And it also has a MIDI input, which allows you to send clock and MIDI note information. Due to the generative nature of Labyrinth's sequencing, this could be a great choice for you if you're excited by the idea of collaborating with your instrument. Beyond being a great tool for sound design, Labyrinth can also be thought of as a kind of idea generator, or an instrument that composes alongside with you, rather than always requiring you to be in full control. And finally, that brings us to Spectravox, which is an analog spectral processor based around a 10-band filter bank. Spectravox takes inspiration from Homer Dudley's vocoder, which was first developed in 1928, as well as some early collaborative experiments between Bob Moog and Wendy Carlos, exploring the use of 10-band filter banks paired with envelope followers to create a simple vocoder that was capable of making warm, futuristic sounds animated by the human voice. Out of all of the devices we've talked about so far, Spectravox is likely the most esoteric. It excels as a sound processor and sound design tool, and it opens up a lot when used in conjunction with other semi-modular or modular gear. Unlike the other Moog Semi-Modular offerings, it doesn't have internal sequencing, a keyboard, or MIDI input. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend it as a first step into the world of modular synthesis. That said, if what you need is a creative tool for sound manipulation, this could be a really great option. So Spectravox has two different modes of operation: filter bank and vocoder. Spectravox includes a single sawtooth or pulse wave oscillator and a noise source. When in filter bank mode, a controllable blend of these sound sources runs into a 10-band resonant filter bank, rather than into a single filter. On Spectravox, you have a low-pass filter at the bottom, a high-pass filter at the top, and 8 bandpass filters in between. Each of the 10 filter bands has variable level control and individual CV inputs per band, allowing you to sculpt the sound by filtering different spectral regions. In this way, you can turn a rich saw wave into something more fragile sounding and buzzy, or by modulating the bands, you can create beautiful harmonic washes of sound. Something that's unique about Spectravox is the ability to shift all of the filter bands up or down using the spectral shift control. In most filter banks, the individual filter bands are fixed, meaning that they're set to particular unmovable frequencies. This spectral shift control gives you the ability to move the filter bands up or down, to sweep the entire frequency spectrum, which opens up a huge range of new processing and sonic possibilities. It's worth noting that you aren't limited to just processing the built-in oscillator in Spectravox. You can run any external sound source into the carrier input on the patch bay, and the possibilities are really endless with this. You could process another synth, an acoustic instrument, your voice, a drum machine, or anything else you can think of. Each of the 10 filter bands on Spectravox also features an independent envelope follower output. This means you can use the loudness of specific spectral regions of a sound to modulate various parameters on Spectravox itself or on another semi-modular or modular synth. So, for example, if you're an acoustic instrumentalist looking for a really unique way to derive control signals from your instrument, this could be a really great option to explore. Spectravox also features a vocoder mode. The vocoding capability in Spectravox is, by design, less precise and analytical than many modern vocoders. According to Moog, the goal behind Spectravox's vocoder mode is to provide a sonic playground for exploring filter banks, formant tones, and dynamic spectral processing. So you can run a microphone into Spectravox to vocode your voice or any acoustic instrument, or you can use an external synth, drum machine, or any other sound source. So as you can see, Spectravox isn't exactly a complete instrument in the same way as the Mavis, Mother-32, DFAM, or Subharmonicon. That said, it is a really creative processor and sound source that could add a lot to any of these instruments or to any other synth you may have. And finally, it's worth mentioning that you can combine any of the synths that we've been looking at together in any combination of different ways. The signal levels are consistent between all of them, so you can use the patch bays to cross-patch between multiple instruments. I hope that this has been helpful in clarifying the difference between all of Moog's desktop semi-modular synths, and in helping you choose the best synth for your musical goals. At the end of the day, these are all really, really great instruments. And the best option for you is simply whatever synth will help you make the kind of music that you want to make. So I would recommend focusing on the one that feels the most exciting and the most lively to you. And of course, keep in mind that what you've seen in this video is only scratching the surface. The beauty of these instruments, and of modular synths in general, is that they are tremendously open-ended. And with the right approach and a touch of curious experimentation, you'll likely find that they're capable of much more than you might initially think. If you're looking for more resources to take your learning to the next level, I wanted to let you know that I have created a couple of online courses all about making music with modular synthesizers. These courses are going to teach you all of the technical foundations that you need in order to work fluently with these instruments, as well as advanced strategies for sound design, patching, and composing with synths. There are Moog-specific classes and more general synthesis and sound design resources as well. And yes, you can take the classes even if you are a complete beginner. Click the link in the description below this video to learn more about the courses and to get started today. All right, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching and for listening, and I'll see you next time.